Okay, so I forgot to upload this video. Like I uploaded it, but I didn't add it to the playlist. Forgot to do that part. Now everything should be in place. Now in our last class, what we did is we had this base armature. Let me just go through the video to show you. We had a base mesh inside which we built our armature, and then we did a walk cycle animation for this character. Okay. So in today's class we're going to add a little bit more to it in two different aspects. We'll look at it separately. So the first thing I want to show you that the base mesh that we started off with, it was a very basic one. You don't even see the details of the face. Like there are no ears, there are no eyes, and there's no eye socket, there's no nose, there's no mouth. So all these details are lost, and also you don't have the fingers separated on this character. However, this is a very low poly base mesh that we downloaded from base, what's that, Blend Swap. Now what I want to start off with is a tool called Make Human, and you can download that from the internet. If you just search for Make Human, you can download a version for Windows. You can also download it for Linux. So if you just go to the download, you can find binaries for different releases. So for most of your computers, I think it should be already installed. This is a separate tool, but it's similar to Blender. It lets you create meshes, just that it's very specific to human characters. Okay, you can create 3D models of human characters based on different parameters. So for example, if you want to have a girl, you can have that. If you want to go for a male character, you can do that as well. Okay. You can also increase the age, make the character grow old, or you can slide it down to have a baby. Okay? And down here it actually shows you what's the age, what's the muscle weight, and the height in terms of centimeter. You can control all of that. Like you can make this character really tall or really short. Okay, so these are all different properties that you can play with these sliders. Okay, and you can also play with the proportions to adjust the body, and also the skin tone and some facial features. For example, if you want to make this character African, you can do that. See, the nose and the mouth, that also changed at the same time. You can also go for an Asian look. Where's the face view? Yeah, it's the back view. It's the side view. So it has some preset views which are pretty useful. But I think I wanted to focus on the face, just the face. Okay. Yes, this character looks Chinese or Japanese, something of that sort, because we have slided the Asian parameter all the way up. We can also make this character look Caucasian, like North American or so, or European for that matter. Now, with these presets, you can also go into detail and adjust the face if you want. So, for example, if you want to make the nose, where's the nose? If you want to increase the size of the nose, you can do that. Also the scale depth, see, you can adjust all these parameters on this character. And it's just not about the nose, you have all these things. You can also configure the left eye and the right eye, and also the mouth size. Okay, these are all the things that you can change. So whatever you want to build, or whatever character you want to design, you can do that. There are a lot of options to play with, and you can get a realistic looking model right from this tool that we understand, right? Also added to that, there are a few things. You can get some custom geometry. For example, this is a male character. If you want to put this guy on a suit, you can do that. There are some preset dresses or clothing that you can use right from here. See, there are some casual wears as well, and there is some preset for shoes as well. Okay, so you can get all of that from here and just play with it. You can also go for a hat if you want to. Okay, but you can also give this guy some hair. Okay, so these are all the presets, and you can also play with the eyebrows and eyelashes and everything, but I'm not going to go for that. If you want, you can also pose this character in a certain pose and render that from this tool. But that's not our target. What we want to do here is rather have this character into Blender, get it exported into Blender, and then we can play with it as we want. Okay, that's going to be the target. Now, one thing you'd notice right from here is that when he added the geometry, particularly for the clothing, it has an option that says hide faces under clothes. Okay, this option is checked by default. Now, I'm going to show you how to export this and bring it into Blender, and I'll show you why this is important to understand what this does. I'll come back to this. Let me just show you that there is a export tool, the third one from the left, up on top. If you go for export, we have a very familiar thing for us. It says Wavefront OBJ. We worked with this file format, right? We looked into this file format. There are some lines that start with V. There are some lines that start with F. Those are vertices and the faces. And formats like these, they will help us talk in between softwares. So if you're developing a model with a particular software, if you want to bring it to something else, you should rather use a common format that both the softwares understand, and .obj is a very common one at that. There are a lot of websites where you can upload your models in just OBJ format, and well, just from here in MakeHuman, we're exporting this as OBJ, and we'll import that back in Blender directly as OBJ. So let me just show you how this is done. You just click here to show where you're going to export this. This is going into my desktop. Let's say I'm just calling this guy young male, and I'm saving this because in the other section I worked with a baby's model. So when I do that on my desktop, there should be a file now. Well, actually, I mean, this is not configured to show the files here, but I can show you that if I go to my desktop, which is here, see, here's now a new file, youngmale.obj, and there's also a material file and another folder called textures. This is new, and this is something I want to talk about today as well. Okay, so now when we open up our Blender, I can delete this cube, and I can go into File menu and go and import Wavefront OBJ, and this is where I can go to my desktop and select this young_male OBJ file and bring it to Blender. See, the model is right here inside Blender. That's easy. So you export as OBJ from MakeHuman and come back to Blender and import that OBJ. Is this clear? However, what you'd notice is that if you go for straightforward rendering, that's not going to help much because it's only going to focus at the feet. The model itself is pretty big compared to the camera setup and the light and everything. So the first thing you'd want to do over here probably is to fix the camera so that it looks at the character from a different angle perhaps. Okay, now we can render this, but this is going to be really dark, so that's not going to help. So you can actually go for a 3-point setup, lighting setup, that is. Shift A. So I'm duplicating and placing 3 different lights all around in the scene. Even that's not going to help too much because those lights are all further down, so we need to move some of them up. And that's easier done right over here. This one I want to focus on the face, and this one over the shoulder a little bit. So this is a little bit better than what we had before, right? And let me go for a full resolution image, also for a full screen one. So when we render this thing back in Blender, what you'd notice is that it has a lot of faces. This is quite clearly visible, right? It doesn't really look like smooth skin. It looks like a lot of polygons that are placed on this skin, or all over, even on the shirt as well. So for everything, I mean, this is a little bit of a problem because you see over here we have all these faces clearly visible. Now this is a really easy fix. You just enable smooth shading, that takes care of it, and also select this mesh and enable smooth shading. Is this clear? So when we render this thing now, this looks much better. Okay, by default smooth shading is not enabled, and that's a problem. So whatever objects that you brought from the other side, from the other tool, Make Human, you have to enable smooth shading for them. So that's that. Now with all these things done, you can work with this model just the way it is. Shouldn't be a problem. Is this thing clear? Alright, now the next thing we want to do probably with this model is that we want to build an armature within it, and we want to play around with it, make it walk, make it run, sit down, or whatever animation you want to do. The problem that you're going to face right away is that when you build this armature, you'd see that if I hide this thing, there is nothing inside this body. Okay? And that's actually not a bug, it's actually more of a feature, because when we build this armature and move this guy, if it had some body mesh underneath the clothes, at some particular points it would appear that the skin underneath is coming out of the clothes. Why this happened is because we have this inside geometry hide faces under clothes. We have this option enabled. If you uncheck that, it's going to render the actually not render, it's going to create the base mesh underneath and also the meshes that we need for the clothes. But when I zoom in, you'd see there are certain parts where you'd have the skin coming out. And let me show you just by exporting this into the previous file, the young male file, and I'm going to reload this object. Okay, I'm going to delete all these parts. Yeah, we got 2 eyes right over here. So I've deleted this. Now I want to bring up, just by importing this thing, wavefront OBJ, young male, I want to import it back. So we got pretty much the same setup, and if you rendered this, you'd see it in the same way. It's just that we got the same model. Now if you hide this, see, this time it's not like there's no mesh underneath. We do have a mesh right over here, and we also have the clothing. So we can actually work with the clothes. We can change and go for another clothing. Let's say right now this character is wearing casual t-shirt and jeans, but then we want to make this guy wear a formal suit, so we can do that. Now one thing that I was talking about, that when you work with models like these, there are certain issues that come up with the meshes underneath. So right at this part, you can see the skin, right? It's not that the jeans pants, they're torn, it's perfectly alright, but the way the meshes are designed, sometimes these parts will stick out. Okay? So there are ways to fix that, but you'd have to understand those and make sure that that doesn't happen. You see, over here there are a lot of issues that are coming up. One way we could make this jeans a little bit loose fit, we could do that, but I mean that's probably not something you'd want to do for fashion statement. But yeah, like all these issues you'd have to be very careful about and make certain changes for that. Is this whole thing clear? This process? How we are dealing with that? So now we can render this thing out, and it looks pretty okay, except for a few things that are not. The hair itself doesn't look too great, even after importing this. There's a better system in Blender to build the hair. You can cut the hair, you can also comb it, style it as you want. We'll look at that, but not right now. And also the eyes, they don't look natural, it's all black. Okay. So these are issues we're going to ignore for now when we look into a better render engine, not the Blender internal. We're going to look into Blender Cycles. And when we study that, we will fix these issues, but for now, let us leave it just like that. I mean, I don't particularly like the hair and the eyes, but other than that, I mean, this is pretty workable. Okay. So when you get this model through that other tool called Make Human, you can bring it back into your Blender. Now what I want you to try at home is that to take your character, okay, take a photo of yourself from different sides and try to build a 3D model that looks exactly like you. It's not going to have the same skin tone or the facial features that you have, but the structure of the face and all these body proportions, you can model that after yourself or a friend of yours if you don't want to build yourself. Okay. That's going to give you some practice with Make Human, that you can play around with the parameters and see where are the options that you can tweak and everything. And it's also going to get you ready for an upcoming assignment. Okay, the last assignment we had was about building a car, and this one is going to be more about building your own avatar or someone else's, and you can actually make that character look pretty close to that person. You'll also have that animated based on some references or some pre-recorded marker-based animations. Okay, we'll look into that. So once we have this model, what we can do, as we have done before, we can build an armature starting with a control bone and going up and going down. We extruded the bolts to build the whole armature. We know how to do that, right? Yes or no? I mean, this is what we were looking at right at the beginning of the class, that in the very last class, see, when we did this animation, we had this armature built inside the body, right? So if I ask you to do this now, you should be able to do it because it's relatively easy. I mean, it's no big deal. But today I'm going to go for something even easier to control this whole body. Okay. But before I do that, please allow me to make this character naked. It's going to be a little bit easier. It doesn't have to be naked. I mean, we can also work with the clothes, but for now, let me just take off all these distractions. I'm not deleting them, I'm just hiding them. With H, you can hide certain objects in the scene. So all these things are hidden for now. and we can start building an armature for this thing. However, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is going to File menu and go for User Preferences, and right over here, if you look at the add-ons, there are some certain add-ons or something like plugins that you can add to Blender. Okay, you can also write them by yourself if you know Python. All these plugins are actually the add-ons, they're written in Python. So in User Preferences, what I want you to try is to look for rigging, and when you do that, you'd see that there is a rigging one that says Rigify, and that's the one I want you to get into Blender. So let me just magnify and show you. Yeah, so the third one, Rigify, you just put a check mark to it, and then go down here and say Save User Settings. Okay, that's all. Now what that does for you is that when you insert an armature by adding a mesh, well, not a mesh, Shift A, that brings up this menu. We know that already, right? So when you go for the add menu under armature, the only option that we had before was this single bone, right? But now we have two more options. One is this human meta rig and Pitchipoi human meta rig. I'm going to show you both of them. So when you insert that human meta rig, you'd see down here you have an armature. Okay, so this is an armature built for you, so you don't have to do it from the scratch. Similarly, let me bring the other one. So this is the human meta rig, and if I bring in Pitchipoi human meta rig, it has some extra features. As you can see that it has the rig for the face as well. Okay, so you can actually control the facial animation with Pitchipoi, not with the other one. I mean, you can start with the other one and add some extra bones and work from there, but this is a little bit advanced, and yeah, it's a bit more useful to that. So whichever you pick, you can work from there. Once you have this thing, certainly one thing you'd notice is that they don't match in terms of scale. One is too big and the other one is too small. So you can work either way. You can either scale down the model or you can scale up this armature. Whichever you prefer is fine. Is this clear? Okay, so before I do that, I'm going to enable the X-ray mode. And I'm going for the orthographic view, the front view, and also I'd like to bring out the side view to look at this thing from the side at the same time. Okay, easy stuff. Go scale up till it sort of matches with the existing setup. Okay, based on the body proportions, sometimes you'd see that the shoulders they match, but the face doesn't match, because some people they would have a little bit longer neck than others, and then the body proportions for the torso they may not be the same. Some people may have longer legs, some may not. So all these things will be an issue, but you'd have to fix that one at a time. So the first step, straightforward, is just scaling. Okay, and once you scale it up, then you'd have to apply the scale, because you have changed the scale factor, and then you'd have to make sure that everything is properly aligned. For example, the arms, they're not properly aligned. The armature says the arms are like this, but in the model they're a little bit forward, like you can see over here. So they don't match, right? But we can go into the edit mode and fix those issues. Let me bring up another window so that I can look from the top view. and this is pretty clear how this is not the right thing. Now fixing this is not a big deal really, but there are a few things that you'd notice that I'm doing over here, and it will make your life a little bit easier. So what I want to do here is to align this thing along the structure, right? And you can see that the rotation angle is not right over here. I want to rotate it like this. If I do that, then most of the things will be in place. Then I'd have to do some extra rotation at the elbow joint, then go from there. Is this idea clear? So let us do that. So if I take this bone and I start rotating this, it doesn't really work, right? I'd have to select all these bones that are here, and one easy way to do that is to use box select. Before box select, you can drag and select a box. So that selects all these bones at the same time. So that was B for box select. And once you have that, you can rotate this. However, the rotate doesn't work because the pivot point is somewhere down there. I don't want this to be the pivot point, right? I want to move it from the shoulder joint. This is where I want to rotate it from. So I want this joint to be the pivot, and to do that, what I can do is I can press Shift S. That brings up this 3D cursor manipulation window, well, pop-up menu, and I can say that cursor to selected. That brings my 3D cursor there. You guys know how to do this, right? Shift S, cursor to selected, that brings the 3D cursor there, and you can see that as well. And there's another option down here that says that the pivot point is going to be what? It says that it has to be the, right now it's going to be the median point, but I don't want that. I want my 3D cursor to be my pivot point. So I select 3D cursor from here. So now this is going to be my pivot point, and the difference it makes, you can see already that everything is moving in relation to that. This is the pivot point, and that's exactly what I wanted. So the next step would be to select all these bones, right? And rotate is, say, this much. But this doesn't look right because it needs to go down a little bit, and you can fix that right from here. Okay. What should be my next step? Select the elbow as the pivot point and take care of the rest of the arm. So select this elbow joint right over here. Shift S, cursor to selected, so the 3D cursor moves over here, and now if I move anything, the pivot point is going to be here. So again, we're going for the box select, and as you can see, they're not in the right place. So I'm bringing them here and also over here, and this view tells me, well, it needs to be here. So you have to consult all the views that are available to you and place the limbs, or actually the bones, in the proper place. Now this is going to be tedious for me. I mean, it takes quite a bit of time to fix these things, and one thing I did wrong already is that I didn't enable the mirror modifier. Okay, so everything I do now, I have to do it twice. Okay, so let me back up all the way. Yeah, I think this is how things were before I started playing with them. So enable mirror modifier, select this one, Shift S, cursor to selected. I brought my 3D cursor there, and then select all the bones, bring them like so, and let's go for the front view. So everything moves on both the sides. Yeah, maybe right over here. So one thing you notice over here is that this is not properly aligned, and that's an issue. I mean, the shoulder joint is not at the right place, so you have the freedom to place it as you want. And make the final adjustments, because if they're not done properly, when you work with automatic weight for armature parenting, they're not going to be right. Okay, so I'm not going to go for perfection because it really takes a lot of time. Even with practice, you'd find that you're spending a lot of time over here. So Shift S, cursor to selected, and then place them in the right place. So for the hand itself, there's a little bit of rotation to get it aligned with the thumbs and all these fingers. You really have to spend that time to make sure that it looks right. I don't have that luxury, but let me try this anyways. Cursor to selected, and what I want to do over here is I can select this this part and sort of eyeball this. Okay, so some of these things, like the thumb itself, has a different rotation shown. So Shift S, cursor to selected, and then you can select these bones and put them in the right place. Okay, so you'd have to work with each and every bone to make sure that they're in the right place. And if you did these things by yourself, you'd also have to make sure that the bones go inside the mesh. Okay, so you'd have to spend the time anyways for each of these parts. But I'm just going to make sure that the major parts are in place, not for the finer details. So Shift S, cursor to selected. I am going to work with the lower part right here, and we can spread it out just as it is for this character. But you'd also have to make sure that they're following the bend, which to me means that it needs to go a little bit forward. Now it looks sort of okay, and I'll stop right there. Is this clear? So I'm going to call this human mesh for now, and I will also upload this into our Section 1's drive, because I want you guys to try this on your own, adjust all these things with Pageboy. So classroom, so Section 1, and I want to upload this file. Okay, so you guys can download this and work from here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back out into object mode, and this looks pretty much okay. You can do whatever we did before, like you can select this base mesh and shift select this armature. You can hit Ctrl P to go with automatic weight. And if you do that and go into pose mode, you can control this character. Okay, so there's nothing new in here. We've already looked at this thing. Well, we have the pivot set. That's why it's behaving that way. You can change it back to median point, and it behaves okay now, sort of. So all these things, they're working fine. No problem so far. However, this is already parented. Alter P to clear the parent. Now this is not parented anymore. Okay, I want to show you that there is a better way to manage all these things. When you have this thing selected, this armature selected, let me save this before I lose everything. There is an option if you press your space bar and type in Rigify. The second option says Rigify generate rig. It's going to generate the rig for you. Based on this armature, you can have a lot more controls to your whole thing. So I'm asking it to generate the rig, and this one takes a little bit of time, but once it's done, you'll see that there are a lot of control features given to you. Excuse me. How this helps is that you don't need the bones anymore. See, let me select the bones if I can. Yeah. The armature, I don't need the armature anymore. Let me move it out to another layer. So there is a little bit of less of distraction. We got some controls over here, and if I go into pose mode, these controls enable us to work with this character in a more natural way. Okay. How this helps? Let me select this body, this whole mesh, shift select the new controls, the cube and all these circles and everything, and I can then go Control P with automatic weights. What this is going to do, it's going to enable us to use the rig itself. This is what we call the rig. I mean, these are different controls that help us pose this character in a much better way. I mean, previously, let's say I want to make this character couch, like to sit down. What would I have to do? I'd have to rotate a lot of bones. I'd have to grab and change its location and all that. But right now, I have a control for the pelvic region of this body. Okay, here's a box given. And a natural way to do this, I mean, this is the idea that if you take this box down, the whole body goes down. So if you hold down G for grab and take it down, see, this character can sit pretty easily. This is easy to pose. Is this clear? And similarly, if you want to tilt this character back and forth, you can actually just use the circle. Use this one to move the neck. And then also you can have this one to control the head, to tilt it around. If you want to work with the legs, actually the foot rather, so not this one, here is a pedal for the foot. You can take this one and place that. See, everything else is getting automatically placed. I don't have to control the individual bones anymore. I can control the endpoint. So the idea is that if I take my finger from here and if I drag it forward, all these bones that are attached to it, the elbow joint and the shoulder joint, they know exactly what needs to happen. Okay? And this is called inverse kinematics, that you can inversely calculate how to position the different parts for this thing to take place. It's actually covered in robotics, this concept of inverse kinematics, actually in control theory. So I'm not going to go into the maths, I'm just mentioning the term. I'll actually let me write it down. Inverse kinematics, which enable you to actually work with the endpoints. So for example, if I take the endpoint over here, well, not this one, yeah, this foot, and let's say I want to place it over here, I can do that just by placing the foot, and everything else will fall in place. See, over here I can also control the thighs, the knee joint, also there should be a control for the shoulder. Can't find it right now, but yeah, we can control all that. I don't know what this one is for, but the other thing that you notice is that you can also change the placement, or you can also rotate the body around the pivot. Okay, so that can be used to move this character along a certain path. Is this clear? So what are the things that we did today? We brought a model from MakeHuman. We exported it as OBJ from there, imported it back in Blender, and then we added this armature and used Rigify to generate the rig. Then we moved out all the bones. I mean, the armature is gone, and this is what is left. This is called the rig. Okay, a rig is generated on top of an armature, and then we use the rig to pair the rig to the body. Now we are playing around with the whole rig, and the rest should be pretty obvious to you because we have done this in our previous two classes, that we can use keyframe animation, that we can insert certain keyframes, and one easy way to do that would be to take the whole character, not just the rotation. You can just say I'm going to take the whole character. If you go for insert keyframe, there is an option whole character, and I can go to another frame where I want to place the character a little bit differently. Yeah, it looks more like a zombie, but that's okay for now, I guess. There are controls for the hand as well. So we can actually take the entire character and bring it to a different pose, and you see this is a lot faster than how it was before. Okay, so you can take it to another pose and have Blender animate this character. Looks pretty weird, but the whole thing changes. See, all the different parts of the body, they're moving to their final position right now. Is this clear? Okay, so I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to give you the rest of the class. A rather simple task, but try to do the whole thing. Okay. I had to explain these things, that's why it took a little bit more time. You can download the base mesh that I've uploaded into our folder, Google Drive. You can download it from there. What I want you to do, or you can do it by yourself from MakeHuman, you can create your own character. Get a character, alright? Build a rig, not just the armature, build a rig. I want you to have a male character that shoots a football. It could be a free kick or a penalty shot, but make an animation appear so that it's going to aim at a point and it's going to shoot the ball, and you have to show that animation. Is the task clear? You will have a sphere representing a ball, and your character has to shoot this ball. So you have to go for the entire animation, coming up to the ball and then shooting that. Can we do this based on what we have learned so far? Okay. Give this a try, alright? I mean, this doesn't really make sense if I show these things just by myself. You guys have to try this as well. So we're going to use this part of this today's lecture for this, but we got 2 classes. So in the next class, what I want to show you is something fun that you can take an existing face and you can put that onto a 3D model. Okay, so we'll work towards that. But I'm going to pause right here. Well, actually, I'm going to finish this video right here. Control Shift.